Hello and welcome to another Pots and Trowels gardening video. This week we're going to start off in the orchard. We're going to be checking on the fruit and maybe doing a little bit of harvesting. We're going to train in some shoots on a newly planted Wisteria. And if you want to know how to take cuttings of tender plants, stay with us because right at the end we'll be showing you how to do that. Well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag this year in our little orchard. Last year we had a fantastic crop. This year, not so good, I'm afraid. We have got some fruit, and I think that's as a result of the dry summer last year, dry autumn, dry winter, and because the plants have produced so much fruit, they just didn't produce the blossom this year. But all is not lost because some of them have got some nice fruit on, and we can see these apples are developing nicely now. And it's the time, of course, when we start to pick apples. And the way to test if an apple is ready, then what we do is we hold the apple in our hand and give it a twist, and if it comes away like that one, nice and easy, that means it's ready to pick off the tree. If they don't and you've got to pull them, then leave them for a couple of weeks and try them again because you want to get them at their best. The pear tree's also done fairly well. We've got a good crop of those. The variety we grow is Conference, so they're not normally ready for a few weeks until we get into October. But I also want to show you the plum trees. Our plum trees, damson and gagers have done really poorly this year. I know some people have had a fantastic crop. I'm green with envy when I see pictures on social media, but ours have been a disaster. This is an Ulin's golden gage, which has got delicious fruit. But this year we had a good set. The fruits developed, but then midsummer they started to get brown rot, this fungal disease that causes a lot of damage not only on plums but other fruits as well. It's a fungal disease, the spores get on there, they rot and mummify on the tree. There are no sprays even if you wanted to spray, and I don't want to spray what I'm going to eat. So the only thing I can do now is to pick over the tree and remove these mummified fruits, which are horrible, and get rid of them in the dustbin or burn them. Certainly not on the compost heap, otherwise the spores just spread everywhere. So really good garden hygiene over the autumn. The fruits that did survive were fine and they've swollen, and just before they started to ripen, the wasps got them. And although wasps are really beneficial in the first half of the summer because they eat loads and loads of aphids, this time of the year they're just craving sugar, and anything that's sweet they go for. So unfortunately, the bulk of the golden gage on this tree have been attacked. I have managed to get a few which I've picked, and this is what a ripe golden gage should look like. You can't tell when they're ripe, but they just soften slightly, and these are absolutely delicious. So before we go and train our Wisteria, I'm just going to taste this golden gage. It's absolutely delicious, but I'm only going to get about a dozen off a huge tree like this, unfortunately. Back in the spring, I planted a new Wisteria to grow up this side of the house. There's one at the other side, but I wanted to cover this side, and it's grown really well. I've watered it regularly, fed it to put lots of growth on, but it now needs a little bit of training. So I've got my ladder out, nice and safe, of course, and going up the ladder to tie in this really long stem. And I've already got some wires on the front of the house, so I'm just going to basically twist the stems around the wires so that that will hold it in place. And then hopefully what will happen once that's trained along and it's made its side shoots, 2 or 3 years time we'll get masses of lovely flowers all on the front of the house. Can't wait. There's quite a lot of plants that flower right the way through into early autumn, and one of them is penstemon. They will flower, and also all the lovely shrubby salvias such as Salvia microphylla. But none of them are totally hardy. If we get a really cold winter, they can either be cut back or even killed. So what I like to do every year or two is, as an insurance policy, just take a few cut-ins. So this is a penstemon here. It's still got masses of flower to come. It's not got much on it at the moment because I recently deadheaded it, but there's loads and loads of new flower spikes that will open over the next few weeks. But I've also got quite a few shoots at the front that have got no flowers on, so they make perfect cut-ins. So what I'm going to do is snip off some short short cuttings. I only need them fairly short, you know, 2 inches, 5 centimetres, and I'm going to cut them off above a bud, so then that will branch out. And I'm going to take probably about half a dozen from around here, and these will all make really good cuttings so that we'll have plenty of new plants for next year. So that's my cutting material. What we need to do now is get it trimmed up and inserted into a pot, and we'll do that in the greenhouse. So the cuttings are really easy to prepare. So we take our new shoot, and we need to work fairly quickly because we don't want them to wilt. If for whatever reason you can't prepare them straight away, put them in a polythene bag with a bit of water and keep them cool, and that will keep them fresh. But using a sharp knife or very, very sharp pair of secateurs, we're going to cut it just below a leaf joint. And the reason we do that is because that's where there's more of a concentration of hormones that produce the roots. And then I'm just going to use my nails to pinch off the lower leaves, and I'm actually going to take off a second pair of leaves on this, because if we leave too many leaves on, it will wilt quickly. And that basically is our cutting, trim below the node or the leaf joint there with just a pair of leaves on the top. So I'll prepare the rest and then we can insert them. Now if you are using a knife, I prefer to use a knife, then better if it's sharp. Believe it or not, you're less likely to cut yourself with a sharp knife, but do be careful with knives. And if you find it difficult to cut onto your thumb, which is the way I do it, then do it onto a hard surface. Slice it through like that. Once we've got them all prepared, we can insert them into our pot. So for the compost, we've got a multi-purpose compost, and then I've got some perlite, which adds some air and helps with the drainage in there. So I'm just going to mix that together, just like making pastry this is. And that just helps the cuttings root a little bit. And then fill the pot with compost, keep it nice and loose. We don't want to squash all that air out. They need the air to help them root. And then we are going to put the cutting in. So there's about an inch of the stem down into the compost. So just make a hole with a dibber, put it in, and then just put the compost around and put them in. I'm going to get 6 around the edge of this pot. So 6 cuttings there, and then we would need to give those a drink with some water, and they then need either putting in a propagator somewhere cool at this time of the year, or a cool windowsill, and you need to keep them moist. So the way you can do that is either to give them a spray every day with just plain water, or you can get a polythene bag, pop that over there once you've watered and sprayed them, and then pop that on a windowsill, and that will keep them really fresh and they'll root. And I'll leave them probably in those pots over winter in a cool greenhouse. You could pot them up if you want, but I tend to wait until spring, pot them up, and we'll have lovely bushy plants next year to either plant in the garden, give to friends. But in the event of a bad winter, this is our insurance policy. Well, thank you for watching, and also thank you to Cobra for their continued support. And if ever you've got any comments or there's any jobs that you'd like us to include in future videos, just drop a message to us. All the contact details are there on the screen. And we'll be back next week with more jobs. Thank you.